All right, welcome back, guys, to another episode of the podcast. Today, we have Teresa, or Ms Precursor. She is a Halo content creator. It's going to be great to talk to her because she's a little bit different to most people that we've had on the podcast. We focus on lore, narration, the theory, and some good old memes kind of thrown in there as well from the Halo side of things. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of pick her brain on some of the stuff around campaign and lore and even the books and other things that we don't talk too much about normally on the podcast. So Teresa, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited. It was
Yeah.
such a surprise when I got the message about this podcast and being shouted out. I was like, I mean, that was a mistake. I don't know who mentioned me.
Yeah,
That was
well,
so cool.
well, I mean, Ascend Hyperion is like one of the loudest voices, and he's got such a unique channel and in the content and the way that he voices his opinions. I was really surprised as well, but I'm glad that he did. How did you guys meet? How did you guys kind of get to know each other at all?
I think the way he heard about me was because he did a video on the state of Halo. That wonderful series he did was like a detailed breakdown, and he did women in Halo. And in it, he was doing these sort of like poll surveys on his server, asking if anyone knew of any female content creators. And some wonderful random citizen knew me and threw my name out. It was the only name he could throw out. And so at that point, he, I think, found out about me, and he'd kind of sent me a message. I'd sent him a message about something else related. So that was really how we interacted. So thanks to the lucky stars that some random person who happened to be in the server that day and knew about me.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's one thing that shows about the Halo community is that it's a fairly tight-knit community, you know, and
Yeah.
I think one thing that has stood out the most when I've been talking to just generally people in the community is that people that are consistent and genuine end up kind of meeting other people that are consistent and genuine, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm really excited to chat today because I don't know anywhere near as much as I should about the lore and everything. I'm just a super competitive person that when I picked up an Xbox controller and played Halo and was like, I'm versing other people, I got addicted to it, you know? But you know, with things like Marvel and Lord of the Rings and, you know, Star Wars and other, you know, lore that can be really deep and go on a lot, I get addicted to it. So I'm excited to kind of chat today and find out some more stuff about that. But give me the rundown how you kind of got into Halo. How did you find Halo in the first place?
Well, I got into Halo right as it came out, and my dad would have been, you know, maybe around 30 at the time that Combat Evolved came out, and I was 4. And so I actually remember this, and I'm not sure how much of it are those memories people tell you versus actual memory. I remember counting down the last few days. My dad had these like Xbox magazines, and like we were counting down for when the Xbox would come out.
Wow.
And he got Combat Evolved, and I remember I would sit in his lap and I would like play. He would usually put the other Spartan in the gunner and the Warthog, and I would like be a chaotic 4-year-old trying to kill things. And growing up was really through my dad, and my sisters and I would play it a lot. We would, you know, stupid game modes. Like we had a version of Slayer where it was just called Kill Daddy, and it was a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old all against him. And we would come around a corner and scream as he, you know, he would throw grenades, and they were chaotic. But it was really through that kind of family experience. And so that was what Halo was for me for years. That's how I first got to know about it.
Yeah.
But that was sort of a casual thing. I played the games a million times up through 3, not really knowing what the storyline was. I always, you know, fast forward to the cutscenes as a kid because I just wrote, mechanical memory.
Yeah.
And then somebody, I think it was my parents, for Christmas one year bought me Fall of Reach, which was a mistake because you mentioned you get into Marvel and Lord of the Rings. I love that kind of stuff too. Star Wars, huge fan. They got me this, and then I fell in love with the lore of this universe, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I got Master Chief Collection, and I played through the games, and I was like, I understand this now, and I was hooked. 14 is really when the like love for the universe kind of started.
Yeah. I love that memory so much. We've got a theme on the podcast which is called your Halo dealer, and you're dad at 4, and
yeah, I got hooked.
Yeah, and which I love that because I think lots of people. My friends told me to play campaign before I was like actually playing multiplayer, and I was literally only playing the campaign because they wouldn't tell me how to play live until I got it, like until I finished the campaign. And I just remember I was the type of person that I couldn't do the 2 sticks at the same time, and you know all that type of thing. So having played from 4, you know, I'm jealous of all the memories that you would have had, you know, going through the games and watching the characters develop and everything like that. But so you played from 4 years old. You've got two sisters, you said, as well?
Yes, two sisters. I'm the middle one.
You're the middle one?
And so I would always, I mean, we played a lot outside and other things, but sometimes like on a rainy day, I would get them to play Halo with me, and we would play games in Halo, and we'd play like hide and seek, like prop hunt, and like we do these variations of Halo, of games within Halo.
Yeah.
And it was just sort of a bonding, a family thing. We'd get whole game nights where even my mom, she was like what you were when you were little, and
Yeah.
even in Skyrim, she'll get panicked and start stabbing the ceiling when a rat comes at her. But family, it was kind of a family affair, and kind of, you know, sisters, we'd pass the remote, the controller over. So yeah, my family, they dealt me an F4, got me addicted. It's just not fair.
Yeah, no, it's not. But it's also, it's that it's a good thing to love, right? There's worse
Yeah.
things to be addicted to. Okay, so and then you said you read the first book when you were 14.
I think it would have been about 13, 14. I can't remember off the top of my head. And let me see if I can grab it right here, actually. If you can tell, when these books are about to go flying, how beat up this poor book is. This is my first Halo book, and I've read this thing front to back. And I tend to find that, you know, the universes that stay with us entered in our life at a pivotal moment.
Mm.
You know, my mom is a Star Wars fanatic. She went to the movies as a kid for the original trilogy. I love it, but it won't mean the same thing that it does for her. Halo kind of entered in my life as, you know, when you're a glue and you're just like, you're a sponge, you're just taking in the world, and you need that universe to escape to. Your imagination. And that was what Halo was. I mean, high school, college, have a bad day. I can't even explain how often I would just grab a novel off the shelf and be like, flip open to my favorite section and start reading. And I realized that's not the common way most people kind of fell in love with Halo, but that is what it was for me. It was a universe I escaped into.
I totally get it. Mine was Harry Potter for like the direct comparison to that, right? Like, I just remember I loved that, the escape to the world, you know, and you get to read something and you think about it in a different way, and it's a really good distraction to be in a different, you know, in something else that's magical, you know, whether it is, you know, Star Wars, Harry Potter, or Halo. And so, okay, when you were reading the books, what was your first, like, your initial thoughts when you're going through and kind of reading it? What were your first initial thoughts about the storyline and how things kind of developed?
What were my first thoughts about the storyline?
Yeah.
I think probably what stood out to me at the time, besides the fact that the universe, I mean, even this Eric Nyland one, right? The first one that was still, the universe was very fresh. I mean, this novel really set the bones for it. It felt very grand. It felt, but not in a way like a lot of, let's say, high fantasy novels. Like if you like that kind of stuff, and that's fine. There's like a million different characters. I love stories, and I love and people. And in Halo, it's a grand universe, it's a grand story, but the characters were in a way very much like boiled down tropes. They were themes. It was like, I can't explain it in clear words, but it was like what Master Chief stood for, Dr. Halsey's character, Cortana, Linda, Kelly, Fred, all of these characters felt very lifelike, and they felt like reflections of people I knew, and or fairy tales that I'd heard growing up. It just felt like a modern myth, I guess, in a way. And as someone who loves myth, I mean, all the like mythology books growing up, I think that's why I loved it so much.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to ask you a question now, which could set us on a tangent for a very long time.
Okay.
But I'm really interested because I'm yet to actually read through the Halo books, which I will admit right now. But it's one of the reasons why is because I just know that it's going to take me, and I'm not going to be able to just read it partially. I'm going to have to sit there and just read. And I don't want to. I don't have the right time to do that for myself and enjoy it fully yet. So I'm saving.
I respect that.
Yeah, I'm saving it so that I can, when I do read it, I'm really into it. But for people that are maybe watching the podcast that haven't read through the books but really enjoy the games, how could you kind of put it to them that would encourage them to read the books? Like, is it going to be something that's going to open up their understanding of the campaign more, and the multiplayer, and the weapons, and the characters and armors? Or like, is it, you know, what kind of value do you think people would get out of reading the books if they haven't already?
Yeah, I think both things you said in there are good reasons to pick the books up. I think most people know that if they read them, they would get some more understanding of the campaign. But I think the motivator that I think could get a lot more people into it is actually how it would impact your multiplayer gaming.
Mm.
It would make you connect more with your Spartan, especially in Infinite. I think that'll be a big deal because Infinite is really with the customization options and things, encouraging you to kind of have a personal connection. And
Mm.
the books make the universe, the stakes that are on the, you know, the UNSC, the impact that seeing a covenant, like a grunt, the fact that they're like 5 foot, it'd be huge, it'd be terrifying if you're just a poor Marine, and it would just, it impacts the whole way you approach the game, which for those of us, whether campaign or multiplayer, we've played a million times, it becomes kind of rote mechanism, and we're just mechanical. Okay, especially campaign, because okay, jackals, you know, you see a field of enemies, you're almost not seeing them, you're seeing, okay, who do you take out first? Get the jackal, get the shot behind the shield, you know, that kind of stuff. I think it would make you feel more involved in the game, more in the world.
Yeah, that's a really cool way of thinking about it. I think even just what you said there, I had no idea grunts were 5 foot.
Yeah, they're like, I think like 4 to 5 feet, like they're big. They can be up to that height. I think 4 feet is more, 4.5 feet or the more normal height.
Yeah, but even that, seeing that as like a Marine and not a Spartan,
it's be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, I think I'd love to. I'm gonna enjoy reading it just to get better descriptions as well. Like from what the universe describes what they look like, and you know, that type of thing, because that kind of artistic description that you get through books is something completely different, right, with your imagination, because it lets you kind of construct the character. Okay, this next question, same. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, it's fine. I was gonna say that that actually is a really great point, because thinking about it, the books describe like when a plasma grenade goes by you, and the whine or the heat of it, and the sound of the bullets going by, or a banshee when it's wailing overhead at it. I mean, you don't know where it is. It just makes it feel so much more real. So descriptions, that's a good reason too.
Yeah, I think so as well. So okay, I again would be the first person to say I don't know how many books there are. Do you know how many books there are in total?
I should have prepared that. I know it's about 20. I don't, and granted though, that does include things like some short story compilations, and there's some really short novellas, like there's a really thin orange book behind me. There's also, you know, encyclopedias, and there's comic books that I've just started reading, some graphic novels, sorry, not comics. There's some graphic novels a friend loaned me, and I've been going through them for the first time, so that's been fun. But yeah, I think about 20 novels, books, give or take.
Yeah. And have you read all of them, do you think? The books?
Most of them.
Series? Yeah.
I just on the Halo headquarters server just did this like lore discussion, because there's one I've never read, and it seems weird. I think it's Halo Hunters in the Dark. I might have gotten the name wrong, but it's basically a book that solely focuses on Covenant, on Sangheili and Sanchayim, like prophets and elites, basically, and following kind of how they sort of the politics there. Covenant races don't interest me as much as the human characters. I know it's probably a very bland thing to say, but I find the UNSC and the insurrectionists and Oni and all that much more interesting. I've never picked it up. I should. It's a shame. I've read almost every other book.
Yeah. So okay, and when you say that, without going into too much detail, if you're talking about the mechanics going on in the background for the UNSC, again, most people that have read the books or played the campaign would have a baseline understanding of it, but how many kind of components are there in the UNSC?
Ooh, that is a good question. So United Earth Government would be like the sort of the political body that would be more like what we would understand as the UN in a way. And obviously UNSC is just sort of the military element. We're more familiar with the UNSC because of the Halo games are in war. So obviously in war, the military is more prominent than it is in peacetime. There is, people don't, know this, but, we're familiar with Section 2, Oni, Spartans, and that kind of like espionage programs. But there are Marines, there's an Air Force, there is, even believe it or not, a Navy, obviously, infantry. It's sort of a much more, I guess, diverse web of like military figures than we get to see with the Marines, because we're dealing with infantry, we're dealing with frontline, ODSTs drop in, take over area. We don't deal with the military police. We don't deal with, so there's a lot more. That was me going into too much detail. And you said
I
Don't go
no,
into too much.
I love it. I love it. That was exactly what I was looking for because one of the things that I love with anything that's got so much lore is the potential that we can that for Halo to develop. I always am thinking from the game perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about, imagine if we could get over the next 10 years of Halo Infinite, if the game could evolve to a place where we got to learn more about those factions, right?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, like more about the Air Force, and we might even be able to have, more like a Battlefield-esque kind of gameplay where the airfield is like a a thing you can play at, where you can, maybe you have to win an objective on the map, and then you get access to the Air Force, and you can play as the Air. I don't know, but it just gives me those ideas where I'm just like, I'd love that to be something that could be introduced to the game to give it even more depth, in a way that's appropriate and doesn't take away from the core mechanics of the game. But it's just super interesting that there's that much going on in the background of a game, and we're only seeing this like little slice of it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's so much more. If we could get to see kind of what was going on at the colonies, I mean, even if there's such a time period, the fact that it's 500 years in the future from now, you could jump to the 2300, 2400, the Insurrectionist War. My goodness, that's going to be a huge thing. I think a game that deals with before the Covenant, that's insurrectionists versus the UNSC, would be crazy. Playing as the colonist side or getting to play as the military. Who do you side more with? There's a lot of, you could be empathetic really to all sides. There's so many stories to tell in that universe. It would be so good.
Yeah.
I think that's a real opportunity for Infinite, though I don't know that they would want to go there, jumping in time at least.
Well, the more that I hear people, well, especially when I hear someone like yourself talking about it, it makes me think along the lines of Destiny more. So I'll just explain what I mean by that is when I played Destiny for the first time, I kind of was like, I feel like this was a game that for like Bungie, for example, when they're starting to build this Halo game, they must have been putting all these ideas off to the side for Destiny, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they could have seen all of these ways of being able to create lore and create this evolving storyline, that is maybe similar or in line with the Halo universe. But not being able to do it because there was too much detail, and so they could dial it back because you have your factions, and then you can even see in some of the releases for Destiny there are very similar kind of concepts that you end up with. I don't know if you played much Destiny.
I've not, honestly, I haven't played it much, and it's really petty. Besides that, I'm busy all the time, and I'm like, well, if I've got time to play, a shooter, I'm going to pick up Halo.
Yeah.
It's really petty of me, but because Bungie gave up Halo when I was young, I was like, oh, really? And the fact, I think the more people be like, oh, the good old Bungie days, no one can compete with Bungie, made me more and more like, just like, what if it weren't for 343, we wouldn't have more Halo. And I got like more and more hardlined, not going to try Destiny. I'm not going to love it. I have played it since. It is cool, but I haven't gotten to explore the lore at all. So what you're saying really interests me because I would be curious to see.
I mean, you love the Halo lore. I reckon you should look into it because I'd be curious to know if you saw components of it that are similar. And because I can just imagine so many people that were like, when you're creating a game or whatever, everyone has such creative visions for things, right? And you have to kind of always streamline it. So you might have a storyboard of like 100 ideas, and then you kind of trying to bring it down to this one streamlined way for the game to progress. And obviously there's so much that kind of misses out. I can imagine over the years that they're creating, the first 3 Halos especially, they're thinking, wow, look at all these things that we've got left off to the side here that we can put twists on and create something else. And
that's a good point.
I'd be really curious to talk. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to stockpile that as an idea. And I'm going to have a conversation with a few more people about it because I think that'd be really interesting. But so tell me a little bit more about yourself. You played, obviously, you started with Halo 1 when you were 4, 14 is when you started reading the books. When did you kind of start getting online? I think you said before we even started the podcast, you played for 10 years, just the campaign.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And it's one of the reasons I know my experience is so different from a lot of fans. And I started to meet more and more people online. And so I realized that my expectations of once for Infinite are much more limited or more campaign focused because I didn't have those years. The reason I wasn't online so long, I have wonderful, awesome parents. They were very internet safety conscious. And I think they were I've often talked about this with friends, and I don't want to go on a side tangent about this, but I think our generation is going to be a lot more aware of everything the internet can do, and we're going to be a lot more strict with our kids than many of our generation's parents were, because the internet was a new field. My parents were quite young, and I think they were very kind of ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
So they just, I mean, we didn't have live. We liked local games. My dad liked, you know, he didn't like playing online for the longest time. Now he's obsessed. He plays so many games online, but I didn't have it. So how I started getting online and no social media until I was 18. So all of this gives me a very different, I was very gun shy about approaching, it sounds stupid to approach the internet to get, I was like, I didn't even know how to approach the animal. I'm 18, had no one to talk to about Halo, but I loved it really. And this is the stupidest way to get involved with the Halo community, but I have a really short story of how it happened. I had on my phone a quiz app. It is now defunct. It's a dead phone app. It was called Quiz Up, and you could challenge people to like trivia knowledge. There was a Halo on there, Halo group, and you could put things like post things on that channel. And even though I wasn't allowed to post things online, I started making Halo memes and sharing it on there, which might have been against the rules. Sorry, mom and dad. At 15, I was rebel with a Quiz Up. I made friends on there, and then I had forgotten about it. I get to college, and COVID is starting up, and I was like, man, I had a lot of, when it first started, I was really kind of lonely. I was living alone on my own for the first time. And I re-downloaded the app, and I found all these old friends, and somebody shot me a message to join this Halo group chat. Then I got on Discord, and lo and behold, I created a few YouTube videos just on my own and posted it on that Quiz Up. And now I'm stuck. Now I'm here.
Yeah, now you're ingrained in the community.
No, it's too late for me now.
Yeah. No, that is just, what a story. I love that so much. And, you know, because I've talked to a few people about, you know, and I think, I didn't ask, if you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm 24.
You're 24. So I remember the first time that I was playing online, it was 2009, I think. So a long time ago now. And that was the first time that I plugged an Ethernet cord into the Xbox and saw another person in a game with me, right? And that experience, there are no kids that have that experience again. You know what I mean? Like all of the games are pretty much, you have to have the internet to be able to get the game downloaded and play, right?
Yeah.
So like your experience is very similar in the way that you know, you didn't have any contact to anything, and then when you started, it's kind of like, well, where do I go, you know? And that you found an outlet through this quiz app, was it called?
Yeah, Quiz Up. Yeah, it's a dumb app.
Yeah, but I just love that that's something that gave you the outlet, right? That gave you the starting point for it, and then to be able to come in and just continue kind of evolving. But if you're talking about the Halo games, which is your favorite?
Ooh, I was afraid this question would come up because I feel like it's such a loaded question now. If you say anything other than 3 or Reach, I feel like people will come at you with pitchforks. So I have to say, growing up, 3 got the most miles on it. We played that thing to death. The campaign, the multiplayer, my sisters and I. So 3 probably has some of the most nostalgia. And this is going to be a very unpopular opinion. I am so sorry for anyone who watches this. Because of when I got into Halo, which is when I started reading the books. Halo 4 just came out. So I was reading the books right up until 4 came out. So it was a magical experience for me with that game, with the campaign at least.
Yep.
And considering I didn't have live at that point, so the issues with 4's multiplayer experience, that didn't affect me because I didn't have online.
Yep.
So even though it's very unpopular, Halo 4 was probably the most magical game because it was the first one where I was waiting for it and I was invested and I was like, could not wait. And I think so 3 or 4, which seem very different, but yeah.
Yeah, I playing Halo 4 now in MCC, I love it more than I did when I was playing Halo 4.
I hear that a lot.
When it came out. Yeah, and I don't know if it's because 60 frames per second, or like, you know, if it's playing differently, and it corrected some of the things that didn't feel right. Maybe I'm not sure about that. I don't get to play enough to really boil that down. But yeah, I definitely enjoy Halo 4 now more so than I did back then. I also think that there's a really strong community of people that enjoy Halo 4, and you know, I think that those are the people that enjoy Halo 4 enjoy it in their own way, and it's not, they're like not the people adding to the fight, you know what I mean? Like they're not the people that are saying, you know, because I like Halo 4 I hate Halo 3, and I don't, everyone who's in the Halo 4 seems to be in this bubble of people that's just really enjoys Halo, and they're just like, yeah, but I like it, you know. I like it.
But I like it. Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. It's not, I don't have anything against any of the other games. It's just personal experience that had some of the most love for that game.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean about most people seeming to like it more now. And I don't, it could be, I don't know, having played 5, or so the art style now doesn't seem as alien as it did then. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I really like Halo 4 now, and just think at the time going from Halo Reach to Halo 4, it was a fairly drastic change, in the way like the time to kill was a lot faster, and it felt like there was a whole different. There was too much kind of added at the time. You know what I mean?
Can I say something that would probably make people hate me even more about?
No, I'm promising that no one will be watching this.
So obviously I loved 4, but Reach, this is going to sound insane. I never played it until last year.
Wow.
I had gone 20 years of being a Halo fan, never played Reach. And the reason was my dad had always just kind of bought the mainline games, he'd loved them. And I read Fall of Reach. And then I was like, oh, I want to know if Reach is good. I started looking up and found out that Halo Reach had all these like canon breaking errors. And as the book nerd who loved the main games, I was like, oh, I don't want to play this game that contradicts canon. So I never picked up the game to play it. Yeah. Finally, my online friends were like, oh, you've got to experience campaign. We were like playing through it together last year during COVID. And that was a really magical time. And I loved the game. But I think that's probably one of the reasons 4 didn't impact me as much, because I didn't ever play Reach, which sounds insane.
Yeah, yeah. What did you, when you were playing it with friends, what did you think of the campaign?
I loved it. It was really a lot of fun. I mean, I was able to, you know, I'm an adult now, so I didn't care. I was like, oh, I understand there are changes from the book, and that's okay. You know, games are different books than media, just like TV shows, just like movies. So I'm a lot more mature, and I was able to take it, enjoy it for what it was. Yeah. I love the characters. It felt, I can understand why people love it so much. Besides the fun, it had much more. Yes, it's a serious campaign, but there's a very element of fun in it. Yeah. When you're playing with friends, I don't know, just it's a fun game.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I loved so much about it is I'm a sucker for things coming up on the screen. You know, like you unlock this, you got this achievement, and I loved that the campaign had its own series of challenges. You know, a certain amount of headshots, certain amount of all of these type of things. I loved that, and I don't think that you get that out of any other Halo game quite as well as what they did in Reach. And that'll help you to get more armor unlocks and character customization. So I really liked Reach for that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I hope they kind of bring more of that in. I think they will, from what it looks like in Infinite as well. I forgot what I was going to ask directly around that, but we can come back to it when I remember.
Okay.
You have made a video on your YouTube channel that's talking about like the Halo TV series that I think was first announced back in like 2013 or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I made that video kind of on a whim. I did not think it would get as popular as it did. Now it's like insanely by far the most watched video on the channel. I made it because it was announced in 2013. Steven Spielberg, there was a big show. And again, right around the time I had read the books, loved the game, falling in love with the universe, I was pumped. Teenage Teresa was like, oh man, TV show, can't wait. And then of course it fell into development hell because of Xbox Entertainment Wing getting closed. So it always kept in my back of my mind, kind of an eye on where it was going. And then heard about a couple failed movie script projects. And then I got wind that one of the original script editors who wrote this fan script, who's a famous scriptwriter, he wasn't just a fan, he'd written during a strike his own script of Fall of Reach, and Steven Spielberg got a hold of it. And then basically that was the story that was going to be developed in some manner. That would be the story Bible that the show would be based on. But it was just a vague interest, and I heard it was announced again on Showtime, and I was over the moon. And I had, again, no one to talk to about it. Even my Halo friends I had at that point really couldn't care less. And I was like, you know what? There might be somebody out there who wants to know all the random bits. They know that there's a TV show. All they know about it is that it's in development hell. And then I was seeing a lot of really negativity on like Reddit, which I don't really go on much because every time I tried, got chased off. And that's okay. Everyone has their own community, which wasn't my kind of vibe. So I was like, you know what? I want to put something that's kind of more positive and factual based. I
Mm,
don't want to share a lot of negativity. I personally have a lot of optimism for it.
yeah.
And so I just randomly collated. It's horribly edited now that I know actually how to edit things better. There's like a big 1 minute blackness at the end. But it was just a random pile of everything I knew chronologically. And I met a lot of people through that. And I love the comments around that video. It's like one of my favorites. It's almost like a discussion board. It's so
Yeah, I
fun.
love it. Yeah, I was reading through them when I watched it as well. Yeah. So where is it at now? Where's the TV series at?
Ooh, good question. It is done filming. It will go live next year. I think in spring. It will be live on Paramount Plus, which might have seemed a strange. I didn't understand at the time why Showtime gave it up, but they're owned by the same parent company, which is actually I'm really happy about because Showtime is a drama thing, and that was what made me nervous. I was like, ooh, I like character drama, but I don't like drama for the sake of drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want it being a telenovela
Yeah.
inside my Halo. And then Paramount Plus is where they put their Star Trek, their blockbusters, their action films, sci-fi. And I was like, ooh, that's a good thing. They think it's worthy of their new service. So it'll be in spring of next year. And I think they already got approved for a second season. Once the executives got a peek at the show, they automatically approved a second season.
Wow.
So
That's
at least, yeah. So it'll begin live in spring, I think.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm hyped for it, and I didn't even know about it. Like I heard about it. Same as everybody. I think we all saw it, and it kind of fell off the radar, and I just never followed up with it. But when I saw your video, I was like, well, that's something that I remember being excited to see. But I was so concerned because I think around that same time, I might be wrong with this, but we had like live action movies of like Dragon Ball Z and a few other
Yes.
things happen, and you watch it, and you're like, oh, it's really bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I really hope that they don't do that to Halo. you know?
I even said that in the video that in a way, I'm sorry for people that were excited for the original project, but I'm kind of glad it died back then.
Yeah.
I know people are like, oh man, they lost the hype. I don't think we were ready for the video game to screen adaptation.
Yeah.
And now video game is kind of loose, but I'm thinking of things like The Witcher, The Mandalorian isn't video game, but again, taking big universe, big scale, and putting it onto the small screen or the large screen in an effective way seems to be we're in the sweet spot now. We're figuring that out. The
Yeah.
industry, I think, is figuring it out. So I think now is a good time. I think they'll really do some magic.
Yeah, yeah. So when you were like, going through and you're reading your books and you're starting to get you're like really starting to enjoy it, and then you're starting to create some memes and put it on quiz. When did you decide, okay, I'm going to start making these YouTube videos as just like a bit of a passion hobby? When did that happen?
Ooh, that happened right after COVID started, like the first month. I had moved out onto my own for the first time, so I had an apartment, no roommates at the time. And work was, of course, working virtually from home. And it was as someone who had lived, at home, I was actually homeschooled. And, I mean, I had a lot of outside friends. I wasn't like the stereotype of, the insular homeschooler, but it was I was very lonely. So I was like, COVID had started. I wasn't seeing anybody. I was like, you know what? Halo is something I've always gone to when I'm at my worst, at my lowest. And and reading the books wasn't enough. I was like, you know what? I'm an adult. I can be on the internet these days.
Yeah.
I want to make videos for me. And it was actually me. And I'm glad I did it, even as cringy as some of those early videos where I look back at it from a year ago. It was something I challenged myself just to do to get out of my comfort zone and to break that. My parents didn't mind being on the internet. I was an adult, but I didn't have that, just like, I don't know, a hesitation about like, how do I approach this?
Yep.
So I just put stupid things together for me, and I found other people who liked it. Even if it's a small community, I love them all. They have my very weird sense of humor, so it's perfect.
Yeah, yeah, that's really fantastic. And so the first few videos, what were they? I haven't looked at them. What were they about?
I'm pretty sure the first few are meme videos. So I tend to see girls do this more in universes and fandoms, and I think is where you take like a TV show or a meme or Vines, and then you put the floating words of characters it reminds you of.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did like John Mulaney as Halo moments. I did some TV shows as Halo moments, and like put
Halo characters. Halo.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
Exactly, like John Mulaney, like take a pause, John, and it's just like stupid jokes and references that I found funny, mainly from reading the books, which I knew a very niche audience would enjoy it.
Mm.
But my point was never to get big. I have a job I love. I never was going to do this full time. So I wanted to make things that I thought were either high quality or high passion, very genuine.
Mm.
Um, I've never been trying to get big, obviously, of a small channel that I am.
Yeah, yeah. So when you said you obviously got a full-time job, we talked a little about it, a bit about it before we started.
Yeah.
And I think when we were trying to organize this, you were saying that you are a performer and that you've got the, things to do. So run me through some of that.
Okay, so my job that I have, it's a dream job. I love it. Is I am a tour guide basically, and that's the boiled down version of it. I got into it because I had experience in stage acting. You mentioned the performing thing. I've done community theater since I was a kid. I loved I loved stories. I loved acting, but I knew I was too practical a person to go to California for acting school. I actually considered it. I applied to one. I was like, oh, maybe. And then 18-year-old with me was like, no,
Mm.
you're not going to chase a living out there. And honestly, I loved theater.
Yeah.
I liked, so I wasn't looking for a career in that because I didn't want it to take my love away for it. So I was like, you know what, Teresa, you can have a normal job and every day 9 to 5 and have the freedom, have the financial stability to do local theater. So I've done that. I'm part of a really great local theater troupe. We put shows on like at the Opera House. We do dramas, comedy. We do a live radio show sometimes. It's fun. Um, and but I'm a tour guide in the day and do theater acting just for fun as a hobby on the weekends or at night.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. And you're saying that when you were young, you
Mhm.
decided that you wanted to do something to do with storytelling, and your mum
Mhm.
said that you can't be a
Oh,
story.
yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that I wanted to be a tour guide. For those, we talked about a little bit before the podcast. I have a horrible, cringy gamer tag, but it's proof it's part of the gamer tag is Science Girl, which I created when I was like 8 or 9 in my defense, and I thought it was cool. I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then, but something I didn't know, I always knew I loved telling stories. I would tell my sisters campfire stories. I was always the one who would stand up and tell the scary stories. When my little sister couldn't get to bed, I would sit up and I would generate fairy tales, would just create them off the top of my head and get her to sleep.
Yeah.
And I found this job at 18 as a tour guide. It was just to pay the bills to get through college, to figure out what I wanted to do. And my mom was like, did you know when you were little, you came up to me and you said you learned about bards and you learned what you wanted to do? You said you wanted to be a storyteller. And I was thinking that that's not a real job. You can't get a living doing that. And then I fell into that career. And I was like, if I had known this was a career when I was young, I could never have been anything else. It is the dream job. I'm not just a tour guide. I actually get to play characters sometimes and tell these stories. It is wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. And for anyone that's watching the podcast that hasn't been on and seen Teresa's videos on YouTube, you can tell when you're watching that she's a great storyteller. You have
Oh,
the
thank
right
you.
voice for it, you got the right energy for it. So it's definitely worth going and checking out your videos. And I'm going to be one of those people that's now saying that you just don't put out enough videos.
No, add to the chorus.
That's
Oh,
it.
thank you so much.
Can add to the echo, and I'm sure there'll be some people that will want to check the channel out from the podcast as well. And I think they're going to be in the same boat. Like it's great when you've got that passion project there to work on, but I'm looking forward to seeing some of the stuff that you do just in the future. Have you got any videos or any themes that you're kind of working on at the moment?
Yeah, so I've got a couple actually in the works. The big play I was doing, which had really absorbed so much of my time, I've actually backed away from theater because it was an hour away. So I was living to work and go to this play, and YouTube just died. I didn't do anything. But now I've got quite a few in the works. Doing one, it's just stupid. It's basically, I keep to my random things on my channel of things I enjoy, of the TV show, narration, and memes occasionally just to amuse myself, even if not popular.
Yeah.
So working on a narration of a Halo short story called Pariah, and I think that one will be fun. It's not going to be as, I'm doing a more theatrical retelling of Human Weakness with some actors, and it's going to be sound effects. That we had art done by an artist on Fiverr. It was amazing. That's going to be a full-length 1 hour audio production, like a full, like a Hunt the Truth, which I loved, a Halo production. If you never heard Hunt the Truth,
Yeah.
worth it. But in addition to that, I wanted to do back to the simple narration, just reading a story. And Pariah is a short story. If you're going to watch the TV show, it might be of interest because it is the short origin story to one of the villains of the show. And I thought that might be, people might find that fun. People that don't have the time to pick up the book could get a little dossier on this character.
Yeah.
They're going to see. And then a meme video of like Halo as the office moments. It's currently 5 minutes long, and I really can't keep finding references, but I do. And again, that will probably get 50 views, but it'll make me laugh. So just random things.
Yeah, no, I love that. There's I don't know if you've seen, but one of the our Instagram account for Divine Mind Halo is pretty much just all memes.
Oh, there
And
you go.
yeah, so I totally get it. And there's two reasons for that. It's actually a really big audience. Like, kids just love memes.
Yeah.
And two, it's some of them are hilarious. Like, it's memes have got a way of being a story, like storytelling, that we haven't had before. Because it's like it's a small amount. Like, some of it's just even just the image, but it's telling a story, and it's humorous. And then otherwise, you add that little bit of text or even a description that fits the image, and I love the way that memes work in the community, and being like something that we didn't have memes growing up, right?
No.
And not until maybe high school, and like 4chan, and then Reddit. Like that was kind of it. And so I love it now. But you should check out the Instagram, and hopefully that gives you some ideas as well, because I'd love to see more of those memes, like see the stuff that you're creating. So
Okay, I will go and stalk that and go and steal some ideas.
Steal some ideas, create some more, tag us in it, and we'll definitely repost it as well. But so have you been following all the stuff that's happening with Halo Infinite, like all the information we get?
Most of it, some of it. So I'm part of a Halo Discord server called Halo Headquarters, and I'm a lore master on there, where I just answer bulky, nerdy questions. But many of my fellow lore masters are people that are really into the element you are, the multiplayer, the competitive. So for instance, the latest news about the armor coating had this huge uproar, and I'm sitting here looking at it, I was like, wait, what? Why is this an uproar? So I'm mostly up to date with some of the news, but some of the latest community posts, I'm not as up to date as I should be. That's a roundabout way of answering your question.
No, it was a good way to answer it. So we're like with the campaigns, right, where Halo 5 is kind of left off, and then what we're going to be getting from Infinite. What are you looking forward to? Are you skeptical? Does it make no sense? Is it frustrating from your perspective?
It's definitely not frustrating. I won't say that I have any negative feelings moving forward. Obviously, I'm nervous because as someone who the campaign is what they love, even if the multiplayer is successful and the game goes on, for me, it would be like, watching a Star Wars movie that maybe insults a character you really love. It would be crushing. So in that sense, I'm probably more nervous than a lot of fans are, because a lot of my hopes are pinned on the campaign. I think they're going in a right track. I really do. They've got a tough hand dealt to them, with all fairness, through 4-3, and I think people forget that. As somebody who loved 4, it was clear that they were trying to go on a more character-focused, more intimate story. And then 5, they tried to scale it back. But I think that's one of 343's problems, is they're a little too reactive. They fixed what was wrong with the multiplayer, but then they over course corrected too much with the campaign. I think from everything I've heard, with kind of having where they're going with Master Chief with the pilot Brohammer, people are calling him, I think we're going to get that heartfelt story, but with this more overarching storyline, this bigger scale of the Zeta Halo, right? It's a bigger scale than most of the campaigns are, in the sense of you're not feeling like you're just stuck in one location, then hopping to a new planet, that sort of thing. You're exploring this cohesive story. And I think, with knock on wood, I think that will do pretty good at being able to make most people happy. So I guess that's as best I can answer, is optimistic, though they're going to have a tough road ahead of them. And I don't think they can make me entirely happy, because what I would want in the story, because I'm too much of a nerd. I mean, what I would want would turn off most people. I was telling friends that have grown up playing the games, we forget what it's like to look at Halo as an outsider. And a lot of people are going to be approaching Infinite, and they've got to make them happy to want to pick up the game and satisfy us. So my dream campaign in my head is amazing, but it would never happen, because it really wouldn't be successful, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I totally get it. I had the same thing when we were looking at the beta that we just had for Halo. I had this big chat with a group of friends in real life that they're not too into gaming, but they really like playing Halo every now and again. And I posted like a 4-page Word document on this, like, things that I really wish they could just concepts that I really wish that they'd consider putting in. And I gave a lot of feedback as well, like after the beta as well. And but it's exactly the same. It's exactly what you're saying. You know, it's like some of the stuff that I want to see, I can understand how it wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't satisfy the new player, it wouldn't satisfy the competitive player, and you've got to have a balance between the two. But I think a lot of the stuff that I tried to say in there, because I do try to think of it as a business, because it's an element of what I'm trying to do with Divine Mind as a business,
Right.
is trying to attract new players and retain new players. And that is probably the most important thing that they can do is, you know, I want to see 1 million people playing Halo online again. You know, with that little counter down underneath the globe on Halo 3 that said there's 1 million, you know, 1,200,000 people online at the moment, you know,
Right.
Which I think everybody wants, right?
We all want that. We all want it. And no matter what element of Halo you're into, whether you're into Forge, whether you're into multiplayer or campaign, the success of the game and the health of the game, popularity, ensures that at least your little corner of the game that you enjoy will have longevity and will continue to survive. And we all want that. Oh goodness. Even though I will get crushed. I am horrible and competitive. I'd be the kind of person you would hate on a team, but I want people to be playing multiplayer.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think that what they're gearing up with the HCS is getting a little bit off topic from what you're used to, but they've just announced a bunch of stuff with HCS and some of the teams that are going to be joining the HCS that are absolutely huge teams, and I think that's a really good sign for the HCS. I just really hope that what they do, because I'm obviously from Australia, my focus is on the Australian community, is I hope they find a way for the Oceanic community, for the European community to kind of all become a part of one and the same, and have a way of kind of keeping our community in Australia involved in the competitive scene. One thing that I think people get confused over that is people want money. I don't think money has to go where there's attention, and if there's no attention in Australian Halo, then there's no point in putting any money into it. But I do think that putting effort into it is the right thing to do. Same as for the European community and for the American community. And if there's effort going in, then maybe other people like myself and my business partner Fred will put more money into it ourselves, you know. So I'm excited for all of that. But I think we're coming close to an hour, and I said I didn't want to take you too much from out of that, because I do appreciate that you fit time in to talk with me. But I have a few questions that I kind of like to finish on. Yeah, so one of them is to do with health and fitness. It's a big part of Divine Mind and gaming, and just being, you know, a nerd myself. We want to kind of get rid of the negative stereotypes that are around gamers, and I think that a good way of doing that is just always continuously spreading, you know, a little bit of awareness about health, fitness, motivation around it. So is health and fitness, is it something that's important to you? Do you spend any time kind of focusing on that?
Yeah, it is. So I, growing up, did a lot of Taekwondo. I was actually a black belt and I loved it. I was a lot more fit as a teenager. I mean, I was black belt at 14. I loved sports and I liked being fit just because of how it made me feel. And then of course, you know, as all of us do, you get into college, life gets busy, you start eating bad. And I've never been a gym person. I don't like it. And I understand if I had a friend maybe who was more comfortable with it, who could show me how to feel it, but it wasn't my thing. I've found, you know, with my job as a tour guide, I'm moving around a lot. I love to hike. I love to run. Just getting outdoors, the little things, going to the grocery store, park at the back end of the parking lot and walk in. Just those little things. When we're busy, we don't think about it. You know, you've got time. If you've got an hour left at your phone at the end of the day, then you could take the extra 5 minutes there into Target to walk from the back of the parking lot. But yeah, not Target. Fitness is a huge thing for me. But more so figuring out how to fit fitness into a modern busy life when so often you're stuck behind a desk. That's a big thing.
Well, really good, because I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of it as well, but there are simple things you can do, like you said. Even just parking a little bit further away is a great one. But a big thing that we're going to aim to do is just try and spread a little bit of awareness to help educate people on, you know, changes. You know, a big thing that will help everybody is just the nutrition, and just understanding, you know, that when we're living a sedentary lifestyle, if you're eating certain foods and if you're doing certain things, then it's going to have a negative reaction. But and I was talking to yesterday, who did I talk to yesterday? Active, who's a big streamer, and he was saying that, you know, he's had ups and downs with his weight, right? Where he's kind of lost a bunch of weight, put on a bunch of weight. And, you know, I think that's the same thing that a lot of gamers will find, right? Is that You know, if you lose a bunch of weight and then it's hard to keep it off, it's because you did something unrealistic to lose the weight. Whereas you can live a healthy lifestyle for a long time, and you can end up losing that weight effectively. And so that's something that we're going to aim to do a little bit more in the future.
I think that's great. I think more of our community, right? There's a acceptance or expectation of once, oh, you're a nerd, you know, we're gamers, you know, oh, it's fine. That's part of who I am. That's not part of the identity of liking that thing or being passionate or gaming. It doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to accept less for yourself just because that's what society expects of you, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, you know, anyone that wants to be a competitive Halo player now, especially if you're younger and you have the opportunity to take it seriously, you have to start thinking about it as you're going to be making as much money as a soccer player, an NFL player, a tennis player, a golfer, you know, any of these people that make a lot of money playing sport. And if you look at what they're doing, they're not living a sedentary lifestyle sitting down, albeit because their sport is moving around, but also because if you were to do that, you lose your energy, you lose confidence, you aren't going to be as beneficial to represent other brands, which is eventually going to get you paid, you know? So you have to find that balance to be able to look after yourself so that you can do the best as an athlete, whether it's in esports or anything else. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, something that we're going to work with slowly, because I don't want people to feel like, you know, it's like that you've got to do it to be a part of our community. It's not like that at all. It's
Is there any way to get involved with the initiative or to help spread awareness about it that, you know, people could do?
Yeah, 100%. So we did a movement challenge last month. Every month we have a fitness challenge,
Cool.
which is, you know, completely personal for everybody. We did, I just filmed the video just before we started talking. We moved, as a community, we moved 1,000, it's 117, crazily, completely random. But
Yes.
yeah, we moved 1,117.96 kilometers as a community last month.
Wow.
And that's not like counting general, like that's not just counting, you know, your daily moving. That's like people sent me runs that were like GPS tracked, and walks and hikes and swims. We had some bike rides. We had people canoeing and kayaking. We had, you know, just a bunch of movement that people sent me that added up to that over 1,000 kilometers of movement.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, really cool, right? And it's hopefully motivates other people that didn't even send in their movement to maybe get up and go for a walk during the day or something like that. So we do that mostly on Twitter, and this month we're doing like it's a slightly more different one. It's to do with push-ups. It's seeing how many push-ups you can do in a minute, and seeing how many push-ups you can do without stopping. And I'm about to release the video again, probably tomorrow, on teaching people different styles that you can do it. And if you can't do a full one, other things you can do to make it easy so it's accessible for everybody. And it's, you know, it's not about competing against other people. It's about just challenging yourself to do something a little bit healthy and fitter, right? So
that's awesome. Well, when the video about the other forms of push-ups comes out, I will definitely have to give that a watch.
yeah.
And when you do challenges on like running, I'll definitely be sure to, like, on Twitter, since I'm on that now, like I fell into the pit. I will have to take a screenshot of when I do my runs and send it in.
It's just everybody just doing their own individual thing, you know, like slowly helps other people to do it. And we've had a few people, I think we had 45 people that sent us movement, like images and stuff that were involved. And that was over 15 countries around the world, all gamers.
Wow.
We had some guys that play Call of Duty Mobile, Pokemon Go, you know, just like Tetris, you know, people that like, they're not gamers like we think of gamers. Some of them are a little bit different, but they all just wanted to be involved in that movement, which I love. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That is awesome. Well, I'll definitely keep an eye out on that. And I think that is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I know we're kind of wrapping up, but basically, obviously when you're a gamer, a lot of your friends are guys. And I think especially for guys, and that's not you know, that guys need it more, but women less often gamers. And if they are, it's less socially outcasting. And I see it breaks my heart when I see a lot of guys or guy friends who, I think they could go out and do more and push themselves to become more. And I think they're capable of greatness. And I think that's amazing that your community can probably give them that push, give them that inspiration.
so that what you said then is like exactly the long-term thing, right? Like you can still be a gamer and to be more successful and a better version of you. and like it's not my place to tell you what that version is. So that's why I'm trying not to tell people that like you have to exercise, but it's just giving you that little push that if it's professionally, if it's finding a full-time job and you've been working over part-time, if it's studying something so that you can do something that you're more passionate about, if it's taking the chance to, start streaming or creating content or whatever it is, like I want to encourage people to be able to kind of take that step a little bit more. And I think that a little bit of, movement and emotion kind of creates more movement and more emotion, and being fit and healthy is a really good way to start that. But
I love that. That's great. I support that 100%.
So the last question that I have for you before I let you go, thanks for listening to me ramble about the health and fitness side of things. Appreciate
No,
that.
it's fine.
Is if you look at yourself maybe like 5 years from now, what's like the dream version of that look like for you? Are you still working as a tour guide? Have you built that up to something else? Are you doing more grand kind of things? Are you still going to be doing some passion projects for Halo on YouTube? What's the dream version look like for you in about 5 years from now?
Ooh, that is a great question. It's a tough question. To put it briefly, I have actually put work toward moving up. So I'm actually full-time, and I'm not just a tour guide anymore. I'm the manager with interns who writes scripts and stuff and does research. And that was a big moving up alone. That was me. I was like, okay, I'm done being frontline tour guide. I want to also, I was like, I don't know if I have the experience. I'm 22. Do I have the years to do this? And I did it and I loved it. So I am moving up. I would love to continue to move up in historical tour guiding and that research, that kind of thing. I don't want to be too much behind the desk. I love storytelling, so I don't want to be stuck doing all the administrative things. But yeah, I've been pushing myself, and I just did another interview to move up in my job, which would be great. So that'll be awesome. Excited for that. And making content, hopefully. I hope so. Halo is, I think, given it's now been 20 years strong. Yeah, 20 years, and I'm 24 now, so 20 years strong exactly almost of Halo. I don't seem to show any signs of slowing down. It's sort of my universe. I hope I'll still be making passion projects, more audiobooks, and maybe I can get involved with some sort of bigger scale narration project, because that's what I love, is audio stories and narration. So yeah, hopefully.
Awesome. All right, I'd love to hear that. And then the last thing before we finish up is, obviously you were tagged in by Ascend Hyperion. And I generally like to really ask, just because I want the conversation to keep going, and I would have never found as fast as I did because he recommended you. Is there someone that you think would be really great to talk to, that has a good story, that could add more to the conversation, that deserves an opportunity for people to hear more about them, something like that?
Yeah. Oh, that is a tough one. I'd right it before we started the call, I thought at the top of my head, I was like, oh no, I'll be expected to tag someone in. I hadn't thought about it, and then I got distracted chatting. Are you looking for someone who does Halo related content and other things too, or just Halo content creators?
It can be anybody. We've had people that work in the esports industry on, not Halo specific. We've had, so absolutely anything, but definitely a tie to esports side of things.
Okay. Tied to the esports side of things.
It can be Halo, it can be whatever. Content.
Yeah. So sadly, unfortunately, because I'm not in the huge esports field, I might not be the best person to tag someone right into kind of your line network. I'm going to throw out two names just because I'm not sure what would fit more best to you, and you can decide. So one is a group that I think is hugely underrated YouTubers, and they started doing a Halo series, playing it for the first time ever, and it's hilarious. They're called Gamers in the Attic. They only have 2,000 subscribers, and the quality that goes into their videos, these two friends, is really great. And they seem to have they have families, and their kids are sometimes they'll bring them on scene. And what struck me about them, besides the fact that they're so underrated and they play Halo, is that I think they've got that holistic approach to gaming that you're looking for, in a sense of how you can balance life and this hobby. It's not really esports related, I'm afraid, but
that's perfect.
Okay, all right, then I'll stop there. That would be my suggestion, because I would love to know more about them personally.
Yeah, I'm interested though. What was the second one?
Gamers in the Attic. And the second one, have you spoken with Jarrus Sunder, who's a Halo content creator? He's very small. Well, not super. He's bigger than me. I shouldn't say very small. But as far as don't hate me, Jarrus Sunder. I just know that he's underrated, and his star I'd be curious to know more about. Probably just got a story to tell.
Okay, well, we'll work together on Twitter, even though I know you don't like Twitter too much. We'll work together to get in contact with those guys, and I'll definitely get them on, have a chat with them on the podcast. But thank you again for so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It was awesome getting to hear more about something that we don't normally talk about on the podcast, the campaign, the books, the law side of things. And I think that we should talk about doing like another series where maybe we break down things in like the Halo multiplayer that that people don't know enough about, because I found some of the stuff like the grunt size, even some of it would be awesome to do like a little series or something where, it's like educating the multiplayer base.
I would love that. It'd be great breaking down the lore into more kind of more user-friendly or accessible multiplayer stuff. I love it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so we can work on that. But again, thank you so much. Everybody that watched the podcast up until this point, thank you so much as well. You're the reason that we film these episodes, and I really appreciate your viewership. If you want to check out more of Teresa's content, the links to her YouTube channel will be down below, as well as any other socials that you've got. I know that we've only just started with Twitter, but we'll put, I think, a Discord link as well that you're involved in. We can do that down there as well if people want to be a part of that. But make sure that you leave a comment, make sure you click on those links, show Teresa some love, enjoy the content that she puts out, and I'm going to see everybody on the next episode of the podcast.
Thank you so much. Bye, Liam.